Today marks a special day for many people. The March 31st is the International Trans Day of Visibility, and with recent laws that were passed in our state, Minnesota has become one of the most inclusive states for transgender people. But there are still many cultural and systemic obstacles for folks in this community.
And here with us today is someone who can speak to the importance of this conversation, Berg. Ryan is a program manager at Avenues for Youth, a nonprofit that helps provide safe shelter, health care, as well as educational and career resources for youth experiencing homelessness, including those in the LGBTQ plus community. Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so why is Trans Day of Visibility so important?
Yeah, great question. It's a day to celebrate the lives and contributions of trans folks in our community. But I think it's also really important to draw attention to some of the challenges and obstacles that trans folks face, like poverty, discrimination, violence, and houselessness. I think in this year alone, we've seen more than over 400 anti-LGBTQ bills go across the states. And as far as who they're targeting, it's mostly trans folks, and unfortunately, it's trans youth. In the past 2 years, there's just been an explosion of anti-trans legislation, and that hyper visibility really does harm, that anti-trans hyper visibility really does harm trans folks. So I think it's important to recognize that, evoke some change, and it's also important to raise up the voices and celebrate the contributions of trans folks, like our very own City Council President, Andrea Jenkins.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because here in Minnesota, really with some of the recent legislation that's been passed, sort of leading the way in terms of being inclusive when it comes to trans folks. Does that make a big difference, especially across the country?
It is incredibly important, and it's incredibly powerful that we stand up for trans folks, and that the state has voiced allyship and alignment with trans folks. So that is incredibly important, but it doesn't diminish the other issues that trans community faces, and particularly around poverty and houselessness.
And when we talk about houselessness, tell us a little bit about Connect. What is Connect?
Sure. So Connect started in 1997, and it was really an initiative from the LGBTQI community, recognizing that there was an overrepresentation of LGBTQI young folks experiencing houselessness, and that shelter spaces at the time were not safe and affirming for them. Many young people reported that they would prefer to sleep out on the streets than utilizing those spaces, and oftentimes because those spaces were, they were experiencing violence, harassment, and discrimination. And so Connect came together through the community organizing, and it was really an initiative to create safer spaces so youth could bring their whole selves and not have to censor aspects of who they are in order to get their needs met. The concept is really simple by design, right? It's folks who have resources sharing those resources with others. So folks open up their homes, provide food and shelter, and then we as a program provide wraparound services and support for LGBTQI youth experiencing houselessness.
Hey Ryan, Shayla had the opportunity to MC your event this week and was sharing some of the really wonderful work that you have done, helping more than 400 young people this year.
It was more than 250, it was last year.
Yeah.
Were able to come through Avenues for Youth and receive services, help with their housing and security needs.
Yeah, I mean, the event, it really kind of highlights the work that we do at Avenues and the work we do across programs. So we have 2 site-based programs at Avenues for young folks, one in North Minneapolis and one in Brooklyn Park. And then we have 2 community-based programs, Connect being one of them, and the other one is our Young Families program, which helps young parents who are experiencing houselessness find an apartment and receive wraparound supports and services.
Mm-hmm. And housing, I mean, if you have a place to just be, I mean, to know that you can put your head down at the end of the day, I mean, there's value in that, and just the way that it shapes your lived experience, just to know that you have somewhere to be, it's life-changing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It is life-changing. I think when you're fighting against all the other obstacles in life, trying to focus in on school when you don't know where your next meal is coming from, where you're going to lie your head, who you're, how you're going to get to school, how you're going to get to work. If you have to deal with all of those additional obstacles, it's incredibly hard to focus in on your personal goals. So the idea of Avenues, really, our mission is really to walk alongside young folks and help them achieve their dreams. So if we can provide that space, that food, that shelter, so it alleviates some of that burden, and they can actually focus in on what their goals are. We know that relationship is at the core of healing, and part of our work at Avenues and Connect in particular is really to build up those relationships, to build up that trust, so youth can really flourish and focus in on what's important to them.
It is such an important mission. So if someone's watching this and they want to help, how can they provide support?
Yeah, we're always looking for new hosts with Connect. So our program is really small by design, and we are really intentional about our work. So if folks are interested in learning more, they can go to avenuesforyouth.org and go to the Connect program button. There are ways to volunteer at Avenues and also donate as well. So there are many different approaches to participating and becoming a part of the Avenues family.
Mm-hmm.
Such an important message. When you were talking, there were a couple of things that I was thinking about. Like, everybody has dreams, but not everyone has someone to validate their dreams and say, yes, you can do that. You can become that. Mm-hmm. You can have that dream, but then also remove the barriers to achieving it, and people to support you in that mission.
It's so important, and it's so taken for granted by so many folks. Right. Having a caring, consistent adult in your life can make a huge difference. When we're talking about trans folks in particular, we know that research shows that if you validate a young person's identity, their name, use their pronouns, it's a form of suicide prevention. It minimizes depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. So having that support, having that caring, consistent person in your life can be transformational.
Right. Such an important message.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.